Inc. Okay. Nitin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm really looking so much forward to hearing from you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the foundation in the beginning.
Oh, sure. Well, thanks for having me, Dr. Becker. It's a pleasure to be here, and I admire your leadership as well as all the work you've done for the foundation and our specialty. So I'm a professor of physical medicine and rehabilitation currently at the University of Texas Southwestern in Dallas. I trained in Boston and then moved to Vanderbilt and then moved on to Dallas. I identify myself as a physician scientist, so I am a physician scientist by training. My work and training has mostly been in clinical epidemiology, and more recently, my work's also involved genetics. I got involved with the foundation as a grant recipient. This was, I remember, during my residency when I applied for the, I believe what it was called at that time was the ERF, the New Investigator Award.
Right.
And it was, I believe, to the tune of $10,000. And I remember being so delighted to have received that when I applied for it. It was a very modest project on rotator cuff tears.
Mm-hmm. That was obviously quite a while ago, before the foundation even existed as what was called a foundation. But you know, that $10,000 grant took you some places forward, and in a way that has obviously been somewhat helpful to your career. Fill me in a little bit about how that happened.
Oh yeah, so that $10,000 grant, I would think of it as a seed that's now grown into a full-grown mature tree. And the $10,000 grant is, obviously it was a modest amount, but really what it did for me was it gave me that sense of success. It gave me the sense of success as a physiatrist in the research world, where we don't have a whole lot of physiatrists doing research. This grant was simply to, I believe, look at some tests, imaging tests for rotator cuff tears. And we obviously accomplished that project, but using that project was my next career development award, or a K grant from the NIH, and which was an expansion of that project on looking at the diagnostic utility as well as prognosticators after treatment for outcomes of rotator cuff disorders. The Career Development Award is also a relatively smaller award, but that eventually led to a large clinical trial that got funded both by the NIH and by the Patient-Centered Outcomes for Research Institute, which was essentially a randomized control trial on operative versus non-operative treatment for cuff tears. Those two awards by themselves are over $8 million. So the $10,000 grant grew to close to or over $8 million in awards.
That's, I mean, talk about a return on investment. That's considerably better than anything that has been in my retirement fund.
I was very delighted at it, and it's been an honor to be part of it. But I very much attribute it to the start of this funding from the foundation of the seed money.
Of course, that is the hopeful dream of everyone that the foundation is able to fund, and it turns out that your success is not totally unique. We've had many people whose initial small funding grants have led to very big career plans and dreams forwards. How did you wind up picking rehabilitation in the first place, Nitin?
Oh, that is a great question, Dr. Becker, and I could spend a whole day on explaining. And I will say I did not go to medical school in the United States. I went to medical school abroad, and PM&R was not even a specialty there. So the only closest thing I knew to PM&R was really orthopedics there. And I did enjoy the musculoskeletal system. When I immigrated to the United States, I got involved with research. And again, really, it was basically I took what I got, and I got and I was involved in patients who had chronic spinal cord injury and to look at respiratory dysfunction. This was in Boston. This study was being done by a pulmonologist, and it was at the Boston VA. In the context of that respiratory dysfunction, well, the patient population was chronic spinal cord injury. And I really did not know the term physiatrist at that time. And in that context, I met a few physiatrists, including Dr. Frontera in Boston. And I started understanding what the role of physiatry was in taking care of patients with spinal cord injury. It also led me to musculoskeletal, which had always been close to my heart. And I understood how physiatrists also treat musculoskeletal disorders. And essentially, that was a love affair since then.
That very much kind of mirrors my beginnings in some ways. My medical school, Tulane, did not have a specialty. There wasn't a department of rehabilitation. There were no professors. I'd never heard of the specialty. At that point, my thoughts were directed toward orthopedics, and I was at that point on graduation from medical school. I went into the service. These were during the Vietnam years. I was working in an orthopedic clinic in Nuremberg, and I had, at the end of a long clinic day, I walked out of the exam room with a particular patient that I'd seen for follow-up, and the chief of the clinic, a colonel, said, "Becker, why are you seeing that guy?" And I said, "Well, I wanted to see how things were going." He said, "You're never going to get another surgery out of him. Why are you wasting your time?" And I looked at him and I thought, I wanted to see whether the last one worked. He said, "That's not what's going to get you OR time." And I realized that there were some differences between my thought process and his process. I liked being in the OR just fine, but I really was interested in people and their recovery pathway. And that was what fascinated me. So in many ways, the same as yours. At that point, I found out that there was another guy that had been in my internship in the Army, who had gone into physical medicine rehabilitation. And I contacted him and found out what he was doing. And what he was doing is exactly kind of what you began working with spinal cord injury. And this was during the Vietnam years. So I wasn't even aware that, there were treatment pathways that were beyond orthopedic surgery that dealt with the progressive recovery of spinal cord injury. And that was a fascinating area for me. And obviously, our field is so broad and it offers so many wonderful opportunities in terms of research questions. I mean, we really, in some ways, as physiatrists, look more carefully at the process of healing and recovery with much more definition and intensity. And you're, working with a very common orthopedic problem, rotator cuff tears, kind of mirrors that. I mean, I have loved my career in rehabilitation medicine because the science of healing and recovery is just exploding, and is kind of where you are now, looking at genomics and areas like that. You have a rainbow of career opportunities forward. I'm envious of you in where you are in your career, because I'm obviously not at the same point in that career. Where do you see yourself going next from research questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I will be a lifelong academician or scientist, and I have both goals for myself, as well as foreseeing kind of a broader program, which is one of the things I failed to mention before was not only has this uh, um, uh, uh, put me on a successful trajectory or enhanced my career, it has enhanced the career of my mentees. And that to me is one of the most pleasurable things, where there are at least, 3, 4, 5 mentees, some of them physiatrists, some of them PhD researchers, who have taken on this area. And I think that is what we need to grow our field of physical medicine and rehab. So that is, I would say, something that I'm very proud of. And in terms of, the next steps, I'd like to keep growing this program and not just offer, more opportunities for myself, but also really to get young investigators, be it physiatrists, be it PhDs, attracted to the field of PM&R, to PM&R research, and elevate the status of our field. So that really is my next goal from this.
What can we do as a foundation to help support your thoughts on this and your mentees? Are there ways that we can be more effective or efficient?
I see that the foundation has had more and more of an impact. I would say I follow the newsletter very closely. I do believe at some point I will become a sustaining member, if that's what you call it. But I think you have offered more and more awards, and have really, it's been a very active organization, not a dormant organization. So that is very good to see. And the outreach to the physiatry, the young physiatrists, or more so the mid-career physiatrists and the senior physiatrists. The one thing that does come to my mind sometimes, and this is a suggestion. I think you've had a number of awards to especially encourage young investigators. I guess there's 2 suggestions. One is, if there is a possibility to also include PhD scientists, and there could be certain, I understand that we want to encourage research within the field of physical medicine rehab, but there could be certain stipulations, such as similar to what the OREF has, for example, that they have to have a primary appointment in PM&R department, or there has to be a co-PI that is a physiatrist as well. I think that could help attract scientists to our field. Yeah,
We have tried to do that, I think.
Okay.
I think the key is that there needs to be a link to clinical physiatrists. It has to be, many of the recent awards have both included a young physiatrist researcher, as well as on the team PhDs, and I think that's been very helpful. And especially as we get into the world of genomics and things like that, it really almost becomes mandatory that you've got PhD level researchers. The science is abstruse in many ways, and requires that level of a science background. And I think there are more PhD, MD, PhD people coming into the field actually as well. So that really matches up well. I've talked with a number of program directors, and I think everybody seems to be really excited with the quality of people, the science background of the people coming into the field. So I think where we go next, obviously, as a foundation, is to try and capture more capital to be able to fund more researchers. And we've done a very good job, I think, in maintaining a very lean and mean organization in terms of the amount of dollars that are contributed, being spent almost explicitly only on funding grants. I mean, we don't have meetings on yachts. We don't have meetings. We pay for our own coffee. So it's quite different than being a Supreme Court justice, for example.
Yes.
It has, I mean, in my career in rehab, I went into the field once I had found out that it existed as a field, with an understanding that there were needs for faculty people, there were needs for clinicians, there were needs in all kinds of areas. And through my career, I've been able to reach into and do virtually all of those pieces, which is, for me, as a restless person intellectually, I've been able to jump in from one area to another area to another area. But my focus really has stayed within the area of really trying to understand the science of recovery. And where you are exactly is that. And as we age as a nation, obviously you've got a plethora of career opportunities, and obviously with your mentees, a cohort of people that are capable of taking those forward. Have we had a lot of your folks that were able to be funded through the foundation?
I've known a few folks that were able to be funded through the foundation. I don't, in terms of my direct mentees, probably not, but this gets me thinking actually to have them apply for the award.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think that it would be the biggest frustration I've had in the process of my involvement with the foundation is that the quality of the proposers, the applicants, the quality is breathtaking. And when you look at things that are very, very high quality in terms of the concept, the research design, the faculty support, the amount of technology that they're able to leverage within their immediate environment, boy, it becomes very, very difficult. There's a really tough ceiling effect. I mean, the current system that we use in grading applications goes to 35. And at this point, I'm dealing with 34.7 to and trying to really pick, and we're looking very carefully at the folks whose research appears most likely to kind of mirror your project in having access to K-level grants, access to PCORI, access to those kinds of potential funding agencies.
Yeah.
So we work hard at that, and are trying to focus more and more and more on ensuring that each dollar we spent is going to be leverageable in those kinds of ways.
No, absolutely. I wonder if you've also given some thought to, partnering on for example, a career development award. I mean, I know we are those tend to be a little bit expensive. I know we are a smaller foundation, but at some point, even if there is some sort of partnership, that might be really helpful.
I think that would be indeed helpful, looking for linkages. And of course, we're also trying to figure out ways that we can link with industry in some way, shape, or form to come up with collaborations that make both scientific and business sense, as well as staying ethically clean and direct.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have the opportunity to spend time with you, Nitin. I'm envious of where you are in your career and the opportunities that you have ahead of you. As a restless mind, obviously, your brain keeps reaching into questions that need answers, and finding ways to address those is to me what has been the most exciting part about our field in general. Yeah.
The pleasure has been all mine, Dr. Becker. You're so well known in the field. I'm glad to at least have a chance to see you virtually, but I really hope I could meet you in person at one of the Academy meetings. I hope to really meet you in the future.
Well, in New Orleans, we can look forward to doing that. So, yeah, I'm very much so. So thank you again, Nitin. I won't take more of your time. This has been such a great pleasure meeting you and virtually, and then capturing your thoughts.
Well, thank you again.
Okay, you take care and you have a good day. Bye-bye.